You're like the beautiful sunrise in the morning. When I look in your eyes and rest me. Oh, you remind me that I am lucky. You're the one and I'm gonna live my life with. I just wanna spend it all with you and grow with you and live in love with you. Oh yeah, I just wanna spend it all with you and grow with you and live in love with you. Oh yeah, show me up, show me to the world. I wanna live my life with you. Show me up, show me to the world. I wanna live my life with you. You are the one, you are my heart. You are the one, you rock my day. You are the sun that brought my way. I never need to lose my way. You are the apple of my eye.
Six o'clock Central African time. A very good morning to you. It's time to rise and shine. You're tuned to Channel Africa Radio, where we bring you the African perspective, broadcasting live from our studios in Johannesburg, South Africa. Happy Monday. I'm Ndoro.
A great Monday. Start to a great new week and a great day. We say good morning to you as Africa Rise and Shine. My name is Asanda, Beda. Hoping everybody had a great weekend. And thank you so much for tuning in. Lots to cover. We've got 3 hours together. And in the first hour, we start by looking at conflict in the DRC, which is continuing. And Lesotho's Auditor General issuing a scathing report on the construction of the Royal Palace. Those stories and more will be coming up in this hour.
Yes, indeed. But first, we have the news with...
Olane?
Yes.
Jolani Tulongwepe has our news update. And then we've got sports with Fikile Lingwati. Just the headlines for now following her.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Rwanda has announced its withdrawal from the Economic Community of Central African States, or ECAS, accusing the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo of instrumentalizing the bloc with the support of member states. According to the Foreign Ministry, Rwanda's right to the rotating presidency, as stipulated in Article 6 of the treaty, was deliberately ignored with instructions from the DRC. It cited Rwanda's exclusion from the 22nd Ordinary Summit of ECAS in Kinshasa in 2023 under the chairmanship of Congo as tensions between the two countries simmered. The Rwandan government noted that the situation is an illustration of the organization's excesses and it no longer sees any reason to remain a member of an organization whose functioning runs contrary to its principles and usefulness. The government of Malawi has informed the families of 9 people who perished in a tragic plane crash that also killed Vice President Saulos Chilima about the findings of Germany's Federal Bureau. According to the investigation, the plane used for the ill-fated flight was not fit to fly, with documented maintenance issues that had not been addressed. A damning report has squarely implicated the Malawi Defence Force. It cites critical failures in aircraft maintenance and pilot fitness, raising serious questions about accountability and oversight within the military aviation operations. The crash occurred on the 10th of June in 2024 when the aircraft operated by the Defence Force went down in the Chikangawa forest en route from Lilongwe to Mzuzu. All 9 people on board, including Vice President Chilima and members of his entourage, perished. Kenya's independent police oversight body has launched an investigation into the death of Abet Ojwang, who had been detained for false publication. Ojwang was arrested for a post on X in the western town of Homa Bay. According to a police report while in custody, Ojwang sustained head injuries after hitting his head against a cell wall. He was rushed to hospital where he was pronounced dead on arrival. The director of rights group Amnesty International's Kenya branch has described the death as very suspicious. Police have said Ojwang tried to commit suicide. It remains unclear what the charge of false publication refers to. Risk analyst and former South African diplomat Dr. Kingsley Makubela says Elon Musk needs to trade carefully against US President Donald Trump. The feud between the two of the world's most powerful billionaires shows no sign of ending. This after Trump declared yesterday that he had no desire to repair their relationship. The fight began over Musk's public criticism of Trump's so-called big beautiful budget bill and the projected $2.5 trillion increase it would cause for the federal deficit. Dr. Makubele says Musk should not overemphasize his importance.
American would in general resent a very wealthy person who challenges the office of the president and wins. It doesn't matter whatever problems they may have with Donald Trump. That's one big problem that Musk has to manage. But Musk is to also understand that the United States president has a lot of powers that can really be used to frustrate some of his key ventures.
Protests against immigration raids have flared up for a third day in Los Angeles, with demonstrators confronting police and security forces. National Guard units ordered by President Donald Trump have used tear gas and rubber bullets. Cars and tires have been set on fire, and dozens of people have been arrested. President Trump described the protests as violent. The mayor of LA, Karen Bass, deplored the move.
I was trying to encourage the administration that if they deployed the National Guard in Los Angeles, it would create a sense of chaos. It's the last thing our city needs. Our city is still trying to recover from the wildfires. And that's an example of where the administration was helpful. And to go from that situation to where we are now is just really tragic. And I think it's so unfortunate. It's the last thing Los Angeles needs.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Mwebe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And in our sports headline this hour, Gerda Steyn clinches her historic fourth Comrades Marathon title. And Angola trounced Lesotho in the COSAFA Group B clash in the ongoing COSAFA Cup. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
All right, it's just after the 6 o'clock news, and every day at this time after 6 o'clock news, we give you what we call the Africa Roundup. And that's a look at the stories that played out in the last 24 hours. And we bring it to you in a concise form to get you quickly up to date with some of the key stories. And we use our team of journalists, experts and analysts to put it all into context for you. And we start with this story. In a rare moment of cooperation amidst ongoing conflict, tens of thousands of secondary school students in the Democratic Republic of Congo's troubled eastern region sat for state exams last week, not in government-held territory, but in areas controlled by the M23 rebel group. And the feat required delicate coordination between opposing sides in a region where armed clashes are more common than collaboration. Alice Rizzo picks up the story.
Earlier this year, Rwanda-backed insurgents seized eastern Congo's two largest cities. Now they're trying to show they can govern. Administering these exams in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo required education officials to personally escort documents and materials from the capital Kinshasa into M23-held areas. The state exams, crucial for students hoping to attend university, began on Monday and will continue through mid-June. Last month, President Felix Tshisekedi's government announced it was waiving exam fees for students in North and South Kivu provinces, citing insecurity.
Armed occupation and insecurity in Eastern DRC have displaced farmers, preventing them from saving seed, planting and harvesting. The failed harvests are pushing up prices in Bukavu's markets and stirring fears that hunger looms. Lucy Fielder has more.
When farmer Sikuru Mwarugamba returned to the 5 acres where she grows beans and cassava, she found stunted shoots and tubers rotting in waterlogged soil. She, like other farmers, had been forced to abandon their planting season and flee from fighting in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo's Kabare territory.
During this period of war, the beans we had planted, when we fled the war, we abandoned everything. We left with the remaining seeds we were supposed to plant, but we ate them where we fled to.
Herman Mutabataba, director of a Bukavu seed company, warned the disruption could herald months of hunger.
Most producers usually kept part of their harvest as seeds for the next season. But in this situation, since they haven't harvested, they couldn't save seeds. The war has become a source of food insecurity.
Lesotho's Auditor General has delivered a blistering assessment of the country's public spending, citing years of delays and mismanagement in 2 major infrastructure projects. Chief among them, the Royal Palace, still unfinished after 15 years, and questionable dealings involving the Lesotho Electricity Company. Rapeleng Khadebe reports on the findings that have raised some serious questions about accountability and governance in the country.
Upon conducting a physical inspection, the Auditor General says their report paints a picture of significant mismanagement and lack of adherence to established construction regulations.
Palace architects, they received 170% increase from the original amount. Mageka Design Lab, referred to as MDL, received 36% increase from the originally contracted amount. Letola Cost Associates, who was the quantity surveyor there, received 2,994% increase. 2,000. And Works Contractor, the main contractor, which is LSP Construction P2I Ltd, received 225% increase.
Uganda's Minister of Foreign Affairs, General Jeje Odong, has commended the government of Denmark for its significant support towards Uganda's development across various sectors. Speaking at the Denmark-Uganda Partnership Day celebrations in Kololo, General Odong highlighted the ongoing strength of the bilateral relationship, noting its positive impact on trade, humanitarian aid, and national development.
It's not just a commemoration of your democracy and rule of law. It is a celebration of the values that Denmark shares with Uganda and the rest of the world.
That's how we come to the end of today's Africa Roundup. And coming up, Peter gets into conversation, zooming into stories that make the headlines on the continent over the weekend and what we can expect to be developing in this new week in terms of stories. Stay with us.
Vue d'Afrique avec Joël Mouteba.
Alors peut-on considérer cette décision comme un désengagement durable des États-Unis vis-à-vis du développement africain ou s'agit-il d'un simple réalignement stratégique?
Bon, ça peut être les deux à la fois. Donc, au lieu de donner de l'argent à la Banque africaine de développement pour partager en vrac, ils préfèrent maintenant donc cibler les pays partenaires en Afrique. Ça, c'est pour le réalignement stratégique. Alors, et aussi, ce n'est pas un désengagement durable, mais je pense que dans les 2 ou 3 prochaines années, il veut d'abord remettre de l'ordre dans ses affaires.
Vue d'Afrique. Du lundi au vendredi de 15h à 16h, temps universel.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Hawa wa Afrika Kusini wenye asili ya kizungu ambao wamepewa ukimbizi huko nchini Marekani. Je, nini chanzo cha wao kuomba ukimbizi nchini Marekani?
Wenyewe hawajaomba ukimbizi. Kuna shirika fulani inaitwa AfriForum, shirika mbili za wazungu ambao wanatetea haki ya wazungu hapa, AfriForum na Solidarity. Hao walienda Marekani kufanya kampeni kusema kwamba wazungu wananyanyaswa hapa Afrika Kusini, na walizofanya hiyo kampeni serikali kujua nini ambacho mnasema kwamba mnanyanyaswa.
Kuna namna ya wao kwamba wamepoteza uraia wa Afrika Kusini, na je, endapo Trump akamaliza muda wake madarakani, uhalali wao wa kuishi nchini Marekani ukoje?
Itakuwa vigumu, kifupi itakuwa vigumu wenyewe kupoteza uraia wao.
Darubini ya Afrika 11 kamili hadi 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
It's that time of the week where we take a look back at the week that was and helping us unpack all of it, all the events, big stories, and what they might mean is one of our resident commentators, Mighty Jamie. Top of the morning to you, Mighty Jamie. I hope you had a good weekend. Did you run, comrades?
Morning, Peter. Morning to the listeners and viewers. No, I did not run, comrades. It's a bit too much for my pay grade in terms of the running. So I typically do the marathons, but Cape Town Marathon is my signature one. That's the one I prepare for. So I'm about 132 days away from Cape Town Marathon. So you can ask me, Cape Town Marathon, Soweto Marathon, those are my signature runs.
But I am pretty sure that comrades is somewhere along your running ambitions.
It doesn't make sense to me, Peter, but if I get to a certain level of fitness, maybe it will. You have to be ultra fit to run that in a reasonable time, because, there's different types of runners. There's the ones at the back who everybody watches to see whether they make the cutoff. And there's the guys who are in the middle who are considered to be the serious runners. Obviously, the elite runners are athletes, but I would rather be in the middle in the respectable times than barely scraping through. And that's what I'm training towards.
No, I hear you. I keep every year, I always say I'm going to, but never quite get out of my bed. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Well, another marathon has been Central Africa and East Africa, where Rwanda and DRC have always been, not always, have for a long time now been tensions. So Rwanda has now announced its withdrawal from the Economic Community of Central African States, ECAS, citing political interference by the DRC after being denied the bloc's rotating chairship, deepening regional tensions amid ongoing conflict in the eastern Congo. How do you think this withdrawal from ECAS impacts regional diplomacy amid this ongoing tensions between Rwanda and the DRC?
I think this development, Peter, will be something that definitely takes things backwards. It's a retrogressive development, and one I think that underscores some of the questions we were asking when we heard that the DRC and Rwanda were going to be able to sign some version of a deal because of the Americans' involvement. And it actually puts to question whether or not the American hopes and dreams were a little bit exaggerated or maybe naive in and of themselves. Because on the one hand, you say that you're going to sign this peace deal, and it's supposed to be happening later this month in June, the signing of the deal, if everything goes according to schedule. But then on the other hand, you have this massive meeting of these states, and you've got 11 members in here, and Rwanda comes out of the meeting saying, we were supposed to take the chairpersonship. It's a rotating chairpersonship. You've now given it to Equatorial Guinea to continue. They're the current sitting leaders of that entity. And then at the same time, you make this declaration that we are, occupying the eastern parts of the DRC, which is something that is not quite conceded to by the Rwandese. So in and of itself, when you look at the dynamics here, this particular move seems to rather give indications or circumstantial evidence, if not hard evidence, that the relationship between the DRC and Rwanda right now is actually worsening, not improving. And I don't know how you could draw any other conclusion than that. Rwanda typically went onto social media and expressed its discontent around this whole thing, airing that, this was not done in a manner which goes in line with the constitution of that particular entity and all of its charters. It's a rotating seat, so to say, this thing is supposed to rotate. They typically, and when I say they, I mean Kagame, he keeps grudges and he can hold on to things for a period of time. So on this side of things, it looks as if things are worsening. What could be driving this is that we've seen now the former president of the DRC meeting with the M23 rebels, playing a role of mediator and broker. And this leads to questions around whether or not all of this is now taking a different shape and whether Tshisekedi feels threatened now that, Kabila will come back through the M23 or try to push a secession movement through the M23. I thought it was really interesting to see Kabila having these meetings with the M23 rebels, trying to play a role either as a leader or whatever the case may be. And I think that could be an indication as well that all of the moving pieces are beginning to take shape in ways that indicate that Tshisekedi feels that he has to take a strong and hard line against the leadership of the DRC of Rwanda, as opposed to a reconciliatory one. As to whether or not the Americans can resolve this impasse later on this month, if they can sign a deal, it's beginning to look like they will bump into the rest of the problems that everyone has bumped into. I don't know how they'll respond to this. I don't think it's on Trump's radar in the same way that South Africa was, for instance. We'll have to see.
All right, then there's the thorny issue of Morocco and Western Sahara. And we're seeing Ghana, the latest country to endorse Morocco's autonomy plan as the exclusive UN framework for resolving the Western Sahara conflict, aligning with an increasing number of Western, African and Arab nations. But I know for sure that many countries across Africa are with Western Sahara and the Polisario Front. How do you think this is going to play out with more and more countries seemingly siding with Rabat?
Well, I'm not sure how it's going to play out, because I think right now what we are seeing is a fragmentation of the view of how this issue should be resolved on the continent. As you said, countries like South Africa are very much in support of the current position of the Polisario movement, and they are not necessarily going to support this. We know Algeria also is not in favor of this. So in as much as we've seen France, in as much as we've seen a few other countries, now Ghana coming to say they support Morocco's version of how to resolve this conflict, I don't think that takes us much further to resolving the conflict. And it may actually be a strong position for Morocco to have this, because at a certain point, it seemed as if the whole of Africa was navigating to one side of the equation and supporting the emancipation of Western Sahara. So now if you divide the room, if you can get significant African players like Ghana to say we don't support this, and other countries maybe which are looking for maybe the support of America, the support of France, also saying, okay, we can actually split from the consensus position, that puts Morocco in a stronger position, because right now they are already in control of most of the area. They are already in a position where they're taking economic benefits from the area. So Western Sahara right now, I think the independence movement basically has taken a significant blow from the fact that Ghana now has shifted or is going a different direction to what seemed to be the consensus view on the African continent. I don't know how countries like South Africa will respond to this. These two stories that we're covering now have similar tones or themes, because now we're seeing Francophone Africa willing to go a different direction, Anglophone Africa willing to go a different direction. Those kind of confrontations undermine the bigger project that these African leaders have said they want to work on, which is this intercontinental trade, regional integration. If we get to a point where Africa is back to Anglophone, Francophone, North Africa, West Africa, Southern Africa, in terms of geopolitical views and Pan-African ideological views. We're back to where we were in 63. Basically, if you recall, one of the debates was what should be the nature of the African Union. And I think many people view that the idea that we should just focus on independence and not economic integration at the time is one of the things that prevented the economic integration from a trade perspective of African nations. And if you have this segmentation, fragmentation of viewpoints, as what seems to be the case in both of these stories, it could mean that in 2025, we're seeing a regression in Pan-African ideals, Pan-African movements, and economic aspirations.
Okay, and then Russia's Wagner Group has pulled out of Mali, claiming that it's completed its mission to support the military against jihadists. They've been there since, I think, 2021, helping stabilize the country, they say. I wonder what your thoughts are, though, on what it might mean for Mali's security and stability, because I don't know that this jihadist issue has been dealt with in any of the Sahel states.
No, which is why this announcement from Wagner Group is a little bit surprising, because them saying that they've helped, everything is fine now. It's like the referee saying he's finished adjudicating the match at halftime. I don't think that we can realistically say that anything has improved in Mali in terms of the security conditions. I don't think we can realistically say that now the extremist groups within the Sahel region have been subdued and that we have peace and stability and that the military and police in the different countries are in full control. We are still seeing reports of attacks. We're still seeing reports of people who are unable to go back to their homes because of the operations and movements of these groups. So I think the impact will definitely be something negative to Mali's security, because Mali also chased away the French support, and that was an issue of consternation. The French were like, well, we're trying to help you guys, we're trying to train your people. But as we know, the relationship between France and some West African nations, particularly those who were former colonies of France, is very damaged. And this whole shift to Russia was supposed to be something that poses a significant reset and potentially stabilization. Russia was very good in Syria, where they helped the Assad regime really to subdue ISIL. But maybe what this could be in the removal of the Wagner Group is that this allows for Putin to send in a formal contingent of Russian troops and the formal Russian army, as opposed to this militia group which was operating on the side. It may also mean that Russia has determined that in the short to medium term, all of their resources need to be focused on the fight with Ukraine. We saw some instances there where, Ukraine was using drone strategies to launch attacks, which seemed to have been very damaging. We saw Trump say that there's going to be a retaliation from Russia as a result of that. So maybe this is just a realignment of Russia's short-term to medium-term security interests, because if you're still stuck in Ukraine, you may need to focus all of your energy on that. And the Wagner Group was a critical part of those Russian-Ukraine missions. So that could be the reason, not necessarily that everything has been fixed. This could just be their saving face narrative, Peter.
All right, and then the final one. I mean, there's a lot being said about this 12-country ban by Donald Trump, banning a number of countries, including some African countries, people from those countries entering the United States: Chad, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, and others. What's your take on this? I do think, though, that perhaps there's not enough context to this, because whilst these countries are mentioned, I'm pretty sure when you compare the number of people who maybe overstayed from Chad compared to the United Kingdom, thousands more Britons overstayed in the US compared to Chad. So I'm not sure what this story tells us, and maybe we might be overcooking it a little bit.
Well, I mean, this is in line with Donald Trump's political promises to his base. He wants refugees and he wants immigrants from particular types of countries. If you recall, at some point he said he wants refugees from Norway or Sweden, or something to that effect, right? So he views that America should prioritize European descent immigrants as opposed to anybody else, because they change the shape and culture of the American environment. We've seen even Marco Rubio saying that they want to have people who can assimilate with American culture, as opposed to just having refugees from Haiti or refugees from Sudan or any other part of the world, which doesn't necessarily conform with his understanding of what European culture and Americanism or Americana is. So, Peter, the most interesting thing I saw when I was looking at the overstay reports, because the Homeland Security Department publishes every year the overstays, is there were 131,000 overstays actually from India. They had a lot of people coming in, and as a percentage, it was a low number of overstays if you're looking at overstays as a percentage. But a percentage can be misleading, because 1 out of 10 is 10%. But 1,000 out of 10,000 is also 10%. And if you're trying to reduce the number of people in your space who are, not there legally and maybe changing the culture of your country, you may want to focus not only on the raw percentage, but also on the absolute number. So India was one of the big overstay countries. The UK was one of the big overstay countries. Canada and Mexico were also large in terms of overstay, because they're sending way more volumes of people. So while their percentages seem lower, when you look at the absolute numbers, those absolute numbers were significantly higher. Also, some of the arguments around the security controls and trying to make sure that these countries which are sending whatever, visitors, business travelers, whatever the case may be, have better vetting for their visas and passports. One of the attackers in last week's attack, or was it 2 weeks ago, I don't remember when this attack happened, was from Egypt. And Egypt is not one of the countries which has faced constraints. So it looks as if Trump has given his base something that they can then say, yes, we're definitely banning these Muslim and Indian countries, black and brown, or restricting them. It looks like that at face value. If you look at some of the rationale for why it was done, it's inconsistent across the board. Nigeria, for example, also has a large number of overstays. However, it's not on the list. So Egypt, Nigeria off the list. The presence of Sudan and Haiti on the list were worrying to me, because there's ongoing crises in those countries. We know that Sudan has the largest humanitarian crisis right now in the world. They need help, not restrictions.
All right. So typical Trump rationale. We won't even go into his drama with Elon Musk. That's a topic for another day. Jamie, we're going to have to leave it there. Always great talking to you. Thank you so much for chatting to us.
Pleasure. Have a good one.
Have a good week, my brother. It's time for your news headlines. Here's Dwalani Tulongwepe.
SABC News headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Making headlines. Rwanda has announced its withdrawal from the Economic Community of Central African States, accusing the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo of instrumentalizing the bloc with the support of member states. Kenya's independent police oversight body has launched an investigation into the death of Albert Ojwang, who had been detained for false publication. And finally, protests against immigration raids have flared up for a third day in Los Angeles, with demonstrators confronting police and security forces. I will have details on these and other stories at 7 o'clock.
SABC News headlines. The African Perspective.
So it was the Comrades Marathon this weekend, as we head to getting the latest in terms of sports from Fikile Lingwati. Gerda Steyn being congratulated for winning, as well as Tete Dijana. But also there was a record that was broken by 83-year-old who ran the Comrades, becoming the oldest Comrades marathon runner, taking the title from a previous holder who was 80.
Wow.
So the 83-year-old is Johannes Mosehla from Limpopo province in South Africa.
That is fantastic. That gives us all hope.
Yeah, exactly. Over to you, Fikile Lingwati. Good morning.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning, guys. Let's start off with that story. The down round, Gerda Steyn has cemented her place as South Africa's undisputed ultra-marathon queen after claiming a historic 4th Comrades Marathon title in Durban on Sunday. A 35-year-old made history twice in one day. She became the first South African woman to win the ultimate human race 4 times, breaking the previous tie with 5 local athletes who each held 3 titles. A 2022 winner, Alexandra Morozova, was a distant second. In 3rd place, Kenya's Shelmith Muruiki made history as she became the first black woman to finish on the Comrades podium. Steyn says she has dedicated the win to her amazing supporters.
What a day out on the road here. Again, I was just taken away by the amazing support from the crowds. The support that I received, it's something I can't explain in words. Today, my run was dedicated to all those who support me, my friends, my family, the volunteers, the supporters. I hope that with my God-given talent, I can inspire some young girls as well today to aspire to one day take on running, even if not to say that it needs to be professional, but just running as a sport, something that they can love.
On to football news. Angola's Depu moved joint top of the all-time scorers list in the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup as he netted a hat-trick to help Palanca Negras to a 4-0 victory over Lesotho in the Group B clash at the Dr. Petrus Molemela Stadium in Mangaung, South Africa's Free State Province. Namibia and Malawi played to a goalless draw in the other fixture in the pool, which means defending champions Angola topped the group with 4 points, followed by Lesotho 3 points, Namibia 2, Malawi 1. It'll be all to play for in the final round of the fixtures on Tuesday when Angola take on Malawi and Lesotho meet Namibia. And still more on football news. And today, Portugal became the 2-time Nations League winners with an epic victory over defending champions Spain, thanks to Diogo Costa's shootout save from Alvaro Morata, which sealed a 5-3 success on penalties after a 2-2 draw. Captain Cristiano Ronaldo was in tears of delight at the end. He had been forced to watch the decisive moment from the sidelines after going off injured, but played his part in an enthralling contest, scoring Portugal's second as they twice came from behind against the European champions. On a night where 17-year-old prodigy Lamine Yamal was largely shackled by the excellent Nuno Mendes, who set up the Ronaldo goal and scored his side's other equalizer, it was Roberto Martinez's men who emerged victorious, adding to their 2019 triumph in this competition. Now, tennis news. World number 2 Carlos Alcaraz has successfully defended his French Open title. Alcaraz triumphed in the longest ever match at Roland Garros, making an extraordinary recovery from 2 sets down to defeat world number 1 Jannik Sinner in a 5-set thriller in Paris. Just like throughout this encounter, the momentum changed hands several times during the 5th and the final set. And at the duration of 5 hours and 29 minutes, this was the longest ever match at the French Open. Let's end with the wheelchair tennis. South African wheelchair tennis star Donald Rampardi is happy with his performance after claiming silver in the 2025 French Open men's quad doubles final alongside his Turkish partner Ahmet Kaplan. Rampardi and Kaplan missed out on the major title after their 6-3, 6-4 defeat to Israel's Guy Sasson and Niels Vink of the Netherlands. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Hi, I'm Tammy Ngubeni, anchor of Africa in Business on Channel Africa, bringing you the African Perspective.
And I'm Ashraf Garda, host of the National Pulse on SAFM, leading the conversation.
We've joined forces to bring you in-depth, exclusive G20 developments as we count down to the much-awaited inaugural G20 Summit in South Africa, November 2025.
Tune in every Thursday at 16:20 Central African Time as we explore how this first G20 in Africa impacts the continent, from trade and innovation to climate and development.
It's a powerful crossover between Channel Africa and SAFM
as we bring you the G20 through an African lens.
The G20 in Africa.
Global Summit.
An African voice.
It's time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of business, economics, and at the desk this morning, we say good morning to Tabiso Lihuko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Peter, and good morning. Botswana's Debswana Diamond Company is temporarily pausing production at some of its mines, cutting output in response to prolonged weakness in the global diamond market. The global diamond market has experienced a downturn since the second half of 2023, which caused Debswana to cut production by 27% to 17.93 million carats in 2024. Debswana, which accounts for about 90% of Botswana's diamond sales, reported a 46% drop in sales revenue last year. The MK party in the South African Parliament wants a Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, to be censured over the alleged mishandling of the budget process for 2025-2026. Godongwana tabled the national budget for the third time last month, with the MK and EFF expressing their disagreement with the increase of the general fuel levy. MK MP Mzwanele Manyi says he has tabled a motion in the National Assembly for a debate in censoring the tabling of the budget.
These events constitute a failure of leadership, a violation of constitutional principles, and a breach of public confidence. Finally, the House should resolve to censure the Minister of Finance, Minister Godongwana, for his mishandling of the budget process, and we call on this House to affirm its commitment to transparent oversight that is pro-poor and to end this unaccountable executive rule.
South Africa's Minister of Employment and Labour, Nomakosazana Math, says that strict compliance with the country's labour laws is essential for building a stable environment that attracts investment. Speaking at a media briefing in Pretoria on Friday on key issues affecting the employment and labour sector, the minister emphasised that adherence to labour regulations not only encourages entrepreneurship but also boosts South Africa's competitiveness on the global stage. Innocent Samosa has more.
The briefing also addressed several recent developments, including Cabinet's approval of the National Labour Migration Policy and the Employment Services Amendment Bill, the release of the 25th Commission for Employment Equity CEE annual report, an update on the Employment Equity Court case.
China and Hong Kong stocks urged higher, led by gains in the rare earth and technology sectors as investors awaited the high-level U.S. trade negotiations in London. China's blue-chip CSI 300 index climbed 0.3% in early trades, while the Shanghai Composite Index gained 0.4%. Hong Kong benchmark Hang Seng advanced to more than 1% and reclaimed its key 24,000 level, first time since the 21st of March. Shares jumped and the dollar paired recent gains as Asian markets reacted to better than expected US jobs data ahead of talks in London aimed at mending a trade rift between the United States and China. Wall Street stocks had closed sharply higher after the jobs data eased concerns about damage to the world's biggest economy from President Donald Trump's unpredicted tariffs. Safe haven assets such as gold remained lower after steep sell-offs. Your market indicators at this hour. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 556. Botswana 13.24. Kenya 128 shillings 718, and Zambia 24 kwacha 60. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar there will cost you R5.55. Russia, 78 rubles 80. India, 85 rupees 75. China, 71.18. And here in South Africa, the dollar will cost you 17 Rand 75. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Gold $3,304 and platinum at $1,167 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $66.45 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabisolo Huku.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa.
All right, it's time for our G20 fact for this 9th of June. Did you know South Africa's participation in the G20 is guided by the country's 4 foreign policy pillars? They are the national interests, the African agenda, South-South cooperation, and multilateralism. South Africa officially assumed the presidency of the G20 on 1st December 2024, making it the first country on the African continent to lead the premier forum. And that's our G20 fact for this Monday.
G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa, championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
As South Africa marks Youth Month, new data shows that young people are taking charge of their financial well-being. Earned wage access platform Pay Me Now reports a 132% rise in users aged between 18 and 33 over the past year, nearly double the growth seen amongst older users. Now, the figures point to a growing appetite for financial tools that offer greater control and flexibility. Tudongobeni has more.
South Africa's youth adopt innovative financial solutions to navigate economic pressures while avoiding traditional debt traps that have historically plagued young workers. As the Southern African nation celebrates the youth of 1976 that fought against the oppressive apartheid laws that prevailed in the country and wage access, EWA pioneer Pay Me Now says the youth of this era should also be celebrated as they take charge of their financial future by adopting this innovative financial technology. Analysis of the usage profile of Pay Me Now shows that youth make up the majority, 52.2% of users on the platform. They also account for 55% of all transactions logged on the platform. Denise Neatling, head of marketing at Pay Me Now,
Bank has unveiled its latest arts initiative, the Standard Bank Art Lab at Nelson Mandela Square in Sandton City, South Africa. The new space is positioned as more than just a gallery, offering artists a platform to collaborate, experiment, and grow their visibility in the global art world. Channel Africa's Lebogang Mabange attended the launch and filed this report.
Are at the forefront of driving sustainable farming practices in South Africa, and this was evident during the Tiger Brands Heritage Tour in Bronkhorstspruit in Johannesburg on Friday, which showcased how innovation and precision agriculture are reshaping bean production amid growing climate challenges. Nhlanhla Mahlangu was there and filed this report.
The tour, which sought to
And we've got differing views. Do you want to share?
Do you know, we're arguing, and maybe you can help us put an end to this. So I'm saying that a cold front, academically, what it is when cold air meets hot air or warmer air, and you get unusually cold weather. Asanda is saying that
the facts are there, and we can describe it academically, but as a concept and on a philosophical level, for me, it makes no sense to say we are in winter and we've got a cold front. Winter is supposed to be cold. The temperatures are supposed to be cold. Of course, they vary in terms of, is it cold, normally expected cold degrees or whatever, or is it extra cold? But it's winter. Why are we saying there's a cold front?
So you can have cold weather just because there's no sunshine. What a cold front is a movement of air. In other words, the sun was already not there, so already the temperatures are down, but this cold front makes the temperatures even lower. That's why we say in winter there's a cold front. We're actually adding to the explanation.
And those are the facts, and I'm not disputing the facts. I'm just saying, as a concept, for me, it makes no sense to say in winter when the temperatures are supposed to be cold, now it's extra cold. It's supposed to be cold.
What are your thoughts?
Cold front, talk about the cold front in summer, not in winter.
Help us end this argument. Channel Africa 1 is our Twitter handle. We want to know what you think.
And that's how we get to the next hour of Rise and Shine. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've just tuned in, a very good morning to you as we start this new week. It's Monday, the 9th of June. Let's thank the team as well in this moment. On production is Katu. On that's technical production. On news is Jalane Tulo Mwepe. On sports, Fikile Lingwati. On economics, Tabiso Lihoku. Our producers are Shengi Wemabaso, Joey Lihodi, Pumozo Ramagaza. And social media is handled by Talent Butelis.
Right, coming up in this half an hour, we've got quite a lot that we're looking at. Earlier on, you might have heard that Rwanda has left ECAS, the East Africa Community, Central Africa Community, and we'll get to the bottom of that and what it means, and also foot and mouth, a big issue that's developing as well. More on that coming up. Stay with us.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Rwanda has launched its withdrawal from the Economic Community of Central African States, accusing the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo of instrumentalizing the bloc with the support of member states. According to the Foreign Ministry, Rwanda's right to the rotating presidency, as stipulated in Article 6 of the treaty, was deliberately ignored with instructions from the Democratic Republic of Congo. It cited Rwanda's exclusion from the 22nd Ordinary Summit of ECAS in Kinshasa in 2023 under the chairmanship of Congo as tensions between the two countries simmered. The Rwandan government noted that the situation is a new illustration of the organization's excesses, and it no longer sees any reason to remain a member of an organization whose functioning runs contrary to the principles and usefulness. The government of Malawi has informed the families of 9 people who perished in the tragic plane crash that also killed Vice President Saulos Chilima about the findings of Germany's Federal Bureau. According to the investigation, the plane used for the ill-fated flight was not fit to fly, with documented maintenance issues that have not been addressed. A damning report has squarely implicated the Malawi Defence Force. It cites critical failures in aircraft maintenance and pilot fitness, raising serious questions about accountability and oversight within the military's aviation operations. The crash occurred on the 10th of June in 2024 when the aircraft operated by the MDF went down in the Chikangawa forest en route from Lilongwe to Mzuzu. All 9 people on board, including Vice President Chilima and members of his entourage, perished. Kenya's independent police oversight body has launched an investigation into the death of Abed Ojwang, who had been detained for false publication. Ojwang was arrested for a post on X in the western town of Homa Bay. According to a police report, while in custody, Ojwang sustained head injuries after hitting his head against a cell wall. He was rushed to hospital where he was pronounced dead on arrival. The director of rights group Amnesty International's key branch has described the death as very suspicious. Police have said Ojwang tried to commit suicide. It remains unclear what the charge of false publication refers to. Risk analyst and former South African diplomat Dr. Kingsley Makubela says Elon Musk needs to tread carefully against US President Donald Trump. The feud between two of the world's most powerful billionaires shows no sign of ending. This after Trump declared yesterday that he had no desire to repair their relationship. The fight began over Musk's public criticism of Trump's so-called Big Beautiful budget bill and the projected $2.5 trillion increase it would cause the federal deficit. Dr. Makubela says Musk should not overemphasize his importance.
Present a very wealthy person who challenges the office of the president and wins. It doesn't matter whatever problems they may have with Donald Trump. That's one big problem that Musk has to manage. But Musk has to also understand that the United States president has a lot of powers that can really be used to frustrate some of his key ventures.
Iran has warned Western countries not to back a censure resolution against it when the UN nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, meets today to discuss Iran's nuclear program. The Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said it would be a strategic mistake. The BBC's Bethany Bell has the story.
The resolution, if passed, would accuse Iran of being in non-compliance for the first time in almost 20 years. It would also carry the threat of an eventual referral to the UN Security Council. It follows a report from the IAEA last week, which cited a general lack of cooperation from Iran and raised concerns over secret atomic work and undeclared nuclear material in areas which have long been under investigation.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Mwebe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, Banyana coach trims her preliminary WAFCON squad from 46 to 28 players. And South Africa's Ndoro Jana wins 2025 Men's Comrades Marathon. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Start your day informed, inspired, and entertained. Asanda and Peter bring you Rise and Shine.
Rwanda's decision to withdraw from the Economic Community of Central African States, ECAS, amid rising tensions over the M23 rebel conflict in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, marks a significant shift in regional dynamics. This move raises important questions about peace, security, and cooperation in Central Africa. To explore the impact, we are joined on the line from Kigali by Dr. Frederick Goluba Mutebi, a political scientist with special interests in political economy. Dr. Goluba Mutebi, thank you for joining us. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for making time to chat with us. What are the broader geopolitical implications of Rwanda's withdrawal from ECAS for regional stability in Central Africa?
I don't think that it's going to have any direct impact on regional stability because the conflict between Rwanda and the DRC has been going on for a long time, in spite of Rwanda being within that organization. And already, as we know, there is a two-track process that is ongoing to try and resolve that conflict, involving Qatar, involving the United States UNCTAD on the one hand and involving the East African community, even SADC on the other hand. So I think that those processes are not going to be affected by Rwanda's exit from ECAS, although what that exit demonstrates is that within ECAS itself there has been a degree of unanimity in condemning Rwanda's so-called undermining of DRC's territorial integrity. But as far as resolving that conflict is concerned, I'm not sure it's going to be affected at all.
So you feel that even the ongoing peace negotiations between Rwanda, the DRC and the M23 rebels won't be impacted?
They will not be impacted by Rwanda's decision to leave ECAS. There have been questions or even worries about the Doha process because the rebels have been threatening to leave every now and then because they feel the DRC government is not living up to its commitments. On the other hand, the process involving the United States, that seems to still be firmly on track. So Rwanda's decision has more to do with its own relationship with other members of that of ECAS collectively, but not individually. I think it has some very great bilateral relations with some of the countries in ECAS. But ECAS as an organization, I think, felt duty-bound to condemn Rwanda, quote-unquote, for its alleged interference in the DRC.
To what extent does Rwanda's accusation of, and I quote, instrumentalization, end quote, by the DRC within ECAS reflect deeper ethnic or historical grievances in the region?
It only reflects as much as concerned the troubled relationship between Rwanda and the DRC. Now, of course, within ECAS, DRC is a bigger country, more influential than Rwanda. Rwanda is pretty much on the periphery, geographical periphery of ECAS. The DRC is very centrally located within the geographical confines of member states of that community. So in that sense, the DRC was always going to be able to sway opinion within ECAS, and there are also rumblings that some international actors have been involved in this. And in the end, Rwanda felt that ECAS was being used politically by the DRC and therefore not living up to its own principles because its own treaties and principles have been violated. Rwanda was supposed to become the chair of this organization during the meeting in Malabo, but that was stopped by the DRC lobbying other countries to side with it, to frustrate it. So Rwanda felt, I think, treated unfairly, and it felt that ECAS is not standing up to its principles and it's allowing itself to be used politically by the DRC, and therefore they saw no reason to stay within that organization.
Could Rwanda's withdrawal from ECAS trigger similar moves by other member states? And if that would be the case, what would it mean for the future of regional integration?
As of now, there is no indication that it could trigger exit by other members because ECAS has been rather consistent in calling on Rwanda to withdraw its troops from the DRC, while also sometimes trying to play neutral by calling for negotiations and trying to broker peace processes between Rwanda and the DRC. So it doesn't seem to me as if it's going to trigger another exit, or if there is one, I don't think it's going to be directly connected to what Rwanda has done.
If it did lead to that, what interventions do you think would be needed to ensure that there aren't ripple effects in terms of other member states leaving ECAS?
So far, this issue doesn't seem to have divided ECAS as an organization. Rwanda has been quite a bit isolated within that organization as far as its conflict with DRC is concerned, in that each time there have been discussions within the organization, Rwanda has usually been condemned. Now, one can see this as a collective stance of the organization ECOWAS, but it doesn't really say much about Rwanda's own bilateral relations with some of the countries that are members of ECOWAS. For instance, Rwanda is very instrumental in maintaining peace and training the armed forces of the Central African Republic. As far as I know, Rwanda has excellent bilateral relations with the Congo Brazzaville and other members of ECOWAS. So I don't think that this is necessarily going to trigger any dissensions within ECOWAS itself that could lead to the departure of other members.
Doctor, let's leave it there for today. Thanks again for your time and joining us on Rise and Shine.
You're welcome.
Dr. Frederick Goluba Mutebi joining us on the line there from Kigali. He's a political scientist.
Africa, voici Abedi. Veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week.
Zambia continues to mourn the loss of former President Edgar Lungu, who passed away on Thursday in a South African private hospital at the age of 68. Former President Lungu, who led the country between 2015 and 2021, remained a significant political figure even after leaving office, continuing to influence the Patriotic Front Party and national politics. His death has sparked an outpouring of tributes from political leaders from across the region. To reflect on his legacy and what his passing means for the Patriotic Front and the Zambian politics more broadly, we're now joined by the Secretary General of the Patriotic Front, Raphael Nakasinda. Thank you very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, and good morning, and good morning, Africa. I'm honored to have been accorded this opportunity to interact with you.
All right, we begin. I suppose we must offer you our condolences on your loss at this time. How is the Patriotic Front coming to terms with the passing of former President Lungu?
Well, we totally devastated, gutted, because first of all, this was, a very shocking development, sudden development. Our interaction with our leader towards his death was signifying, expressing, or indicating that he was on the mend, and I think it gave us a lot of hope. There were even indications that he could be returning back in the next 2 weeks or so after what he described as a small procedure, which unfortunately today the story is different. Yeah, so really we are devastated, like I said, and the country is devastated. I was just talking to some people from back home who were saying that this development has totally shattered the hopes of our people back home, because obvious, as you know, we are marching towards 2026 elections, and he was one of the more or less leaders that the Zambian people are pronouncing consistently that looking at what has transpired under the leadership of the UPND and Misaka Ndechilema, we needed experienced and competent hands to come back and get the country back on the road in all areas or facets of governance, whether it is the economy, whether it is governance institutions, democracy, and so on, which have deteriorated in within a short space of time. So his death really has devastated every Zambian. And for Patriotic Front, of course, it's a challenge to those of us who are in leadership.
So you would have worked quite closely with him as the party's Secretary General. How would you describe his leadership style and what kind of leader he was?
President Edgar Chagalungu was a man of few words. I think he was one who was...
Mr. Nakasinda, there we go. We can hear you now. We were struggling to hear you there, but you're coming through clearly now. Please carry on.
Yeah, I was saying that he was a man of few words. I think he preferred to have his work speak for him more than him playing to the gallery or engaging into trying to justify himself and so on. I think I remember that you had a few moments and times when you interacted with him. You noticed that really he wasn't a man that would, naturally be in the media by himself, but he was a man of action. Within the 7 years that he was president, if you look at the infrastructure development in the country, it's unprecedented. If you look at attempts to strengthen institutions of government, he's the first president who dared in the last 50-something years, but at the time that was getting into office, that was willing to allow the Zambian people give themselves a constitution that they had long been desiring to have. He did make a pronouncement when he was appointed Minister of Justice at the time before he became president, that the draft constitution that the Zambian people had been discussing and making submissions to a technical committee, and later on looks like his boss was beginning to develop court feet. When he was made Justice Minister, he made pronouncements that were somehow not expected, that for as long as he remains Minister of Justice, to make sure that that draft, bill will see the light of day in Parliament. When he became president, he on the day of inauguration appointed the Justice Minister with the, clear these directives: go and make sure that the will of the people prevailed, and that's how come the new Constitution of 2016. Was enacted without altering what the wishes of the people were, and that bill came out of a broader, consultation. There was consensus in the nation that's what they desired. It's one of the fundamental achievements in his presidency, because for a long time, people, for example, were desiring that we should have a majoritarian electoral system that guarantees the majoritarian, system by having 50 plus 1.
Mr. Lekasinda, we're running out of time, unfortunately, but I do have to ask you this. You've painted quite a rich legacy, but some people would say that it's actually quite mixed, that he bankrupted Zambia as a result of a lot of these infrastructure projects and beyond, that the level of corruption was quite high during his tenure, and also that he led with quite a firm hand to the sacrifice of some democratic principles. What would you say to his detractors?
Well, I think now, if you are paying close attention to what is happening, if there was any definition of corruption under Edgar Chagalungu, I think it was maybe it wasn't the correct definition. If you want to know what corruption is, come to Zambia now, because what is happening in our country is out of this world. Institutions of government have been paralyzed. When it comes to the key sectors of our economy, whether it's in the mines and so on, we have those who are in government, even at the highest level of president, having direct interest in all that is happening there. We're having more or less, privatization program, phase 2, unlike the first one, which, as it were, individuals benefited, but somehow there was a bit of an attempt to salvage what was happening. But this time around, I think by the time Isaka and HLM leaves office, Zambia will be left with no asset whatsoever.
Right.
Everything would have been in the hands of foreigners and so on.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time. We're going to have to leave it there. But I think your message is clear that you're saying that there's much more corruption right now than during the Lungu period. But we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. And again, our condolences to you and your party on the loss of your leader. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you. That's Raphael Nakasinda, who's the Secretary General of the Patriotic Front Party in Zimbabwe, which was led by former President Edgar Lungu.
Bringing you the energy, news, and good vibes to kickstart your day. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa's tourism sector has come into the spotlight following the recent update to the United States Department of State's travel advisory. While the advisory maintains a level 2 rating or exercise increased caution, it has sparked conversation around safety and perceptions of travel to the country. In response, the Minister of Tourism, Patricia de Lille, has reaffirmed South Africa's commitment to ensuring a safe and welcoming environment for all visitors. Minister de Lille joins us now on the line to discuss further. Minister, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Asanda. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
We appreciate you making time for us this morning. First of all, Minister, how important or how crucial is this U.S. advisory, travel advisory first, in terms of how a country can be made to look, in terms of the image of a country and its international attractiveness?
Yes, thank you, Asanda, for the opportunity. South Africa remains one of the most sought after travel destinations in the world. You know, we are known for natural beauty and all of those. And we are making sure that, all our travelers that do come to South Africa, that first of all, we share information with them, that we do have a 24/7 National Tourism Safety Helpline. Also, the hospitality sector will issue also advisories, to possible visitors, and that South Africa don't just rely on one country to grow our numbers. In fact, more than 76% of annual tourists visiting our country comes from the continent. But we do work together with the South African Police Services, whose primary mandate is to make sure of the safety of all South Africans, including our visitors. So we are continue to keep potential tourists informed, and there are a lot of inquiries about the situation. And we find that the United States is the fastest growing international arrivals in our country. We've seen just in the past 4 months more than 111,000 visitors from the United States do come in. But on the other hand, Asanda, we also respect the right of any country in the world to issue an advisory to their citizens to guide them about traveling abroad. And especially with the United States, we've all seen the meeting with our President Cyril Ramaphosa and President Trump. And so it is work in progress. We have to continue working together.
Is it fair, this assessment of level 2 for South Africa, or a level of exercise increased caution in your view? Does it adequately reflect the current state of the country?
It is important to offer a broader context and to reaffirm our unwavering commitment to ensuring the safety, the comfort, and enjoyment of all our visitors. As we all know, that a lot of lies about genocide in South Africa, we are beginning to turn the tide there, and people can see that it is not a fake case of genocide, and we must continue, to put out that message, to say there is no genocide in our country. But irrespective and despite of all of this, we still see the growth of visitors to our country. Just in 2024 alone, we received over 370,000 visitors from the United States of America. And, we are reaching out through our embassies, through our consul generals around the world, through tour operators, South Africa SATSA inbound operators. We continue to put out the messages there as to what we are doing. We are not denying that there's crime in the country, but it is important to keep that balance to show people that despite this, they can still come and visit our country.
And on that point, as you say, despite this advisory, we to do as South Africa continue to draw American tourists into the country. So what would your message be, finally, Minister, to international travelers, especially from the US, who may be reconsidering their travel plans into South Africa?
Well, my message to all our visitors from around the world is that we regret the attack on any tourist visiting our country. And we look forward to continue to welcome travelers from the United States and across the globe to visit our country. And that we are engaging very closely with our Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. And I want to wish and to reassure that give tourists the reassurance that South Africa remains open, welcoming and committed to the well-being of all those people visiting us.
Thank you so much. We're going to leave it there for this morning,
Thanks,
Minister.
Asanda.
Appreciating your time again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Great. So that's South Africa's Minister of Tourism, Patricia de Lille. And that brings us to 7:30 Central African Time. That means it's time for our news headlines. Good morning, Jolane Tulo Ngwepe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines, Rwanda has announced its withdrawal from the Economic Community of Central African States, ECAS, accusing the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo of instrumentalizing the bloc with the support of member states. The government of Malawi has informed the families of the 9 people who perished in the tragic plane crash that also killed Vice President Saulos Chilima about the findings of Germany's Federal Bureau. According to the investigation, the plane used for the ill-fated flight was not fit to fly, with undocumented maintenance issues that had not been addressed. And finally, Italians have voted in modest numbers in Italy's referendum on whether to make it easier for foreigners to obtain citizenship. I will have details on these and other stories at 8 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
All right, it's time for us to find out what's happening in the world of sport. And what a weekend, Figile. I mean, if it wasn't the French Open, Coco Gauff, amazing. The men's final, amazing. European Nations Cup final, Ronaldo, 938th goal. Wow, I'm out of breath. How was it for you, Figile Lingwati, with the sport?
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
I had a wait of a time jumping from one place to another. But let me start off with what will be coming soon. Banyana coach Desiree Ellis has trimmed a preliminary squad for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON down to 28 players as she continues to fine-tune her list ahead of the continental tournament to be held in Morocco next month. Ellis initially announced a provisional squad of 46 players last month, and 24 of the 28 players that have made this latest list will go into camp in Johannesburg on the 19th of June 2025. The 24 will be joined by 4 overseas-based players at a later stage, as they still have club commitments, and with the date of assembling falling outside of the FIFA window, their arrival in camp will be delayed by a few days. The final squad announcement will be made on the 23rd of June in Johannesburg, and then the team will depart for Morocco shortly afterwards. And Angola's Depu moved joint top of the all-time scorers list in the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup as he netted a hat-trick to help Palanca Negras to a 4-0 victory over Lesotho in the Group B clash at the Dr. Petrus Molemela Stadium in Mangaung, Free State Province. Namibia and Malawi played to a goalless draw in the other fixture in the pool, which means defending champions Angola top the group with 4 points, followed by Lesotho 3 points, Namibia 2, and Malawi 1. It'll be all to play for in the final round of fixtures on Tuesday, when Angola take on Malawi and Lesotho meet Namibia. Comrades Marathon South Africa's Tete Dijana is the proud winner of the 2025 Comrades Marathon. The Mahikeng resident won the 98th edition of the Ultimate Human Race from Pietermaritzburg to Durban for the third time, adding to his victories in 2022 and 2023. Dutchman and 2024 champion Pete Versma finished second, and Russian Nikolai Volkov was third. Dijana says he had sufficient fuel in the tank in the end to hold off the Dutchman.
I saw that it's under control because I think the last 10 I saw he was closing the gap, and then I accelerated a little bit and opened a gap, and then I could see that last 2 kilo now is still far. Yeah, it was under control.
Meanwhile, world number 2 Carlos Alcaraz has successfully defended his French Open title. Alcaraz triumphed in the longest ever match at Roland Garros, making an extraordinary recovery from 2 sets down to defeat world number 1 Jannik Sinner in a 5-set thriller in Paris. Just like throughout this encounter, the momentum changed hands several times during the 5th and the final set. But in the end, it was the world number 2 who found another gear in the final tiebreaker. He conceded just 2 points on his way to a 4-6, 6-7, 6-4, 7-6 and 7-6 victory, securing his 5th Grand Slam title and his 2nd successive one at Roland Garros. South African wheelchair tennis star Donald Rampardi is happy with his performance after claiming silver in the 2025 French Open men's squad doubles final alongside his Turkish partner Ahmed Kaplan. Rampardi and Kaplan missed out on the major title after their 6-3, 6-4 defeat to Israel's Guy Sesson and Niels Vink of the Netherlands. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Hi, I'm Tami Ngubeni, anchor of Africa in Business on Channel Africa, bringing you the African perspective.
And I'm Ashraf Garda, host of the National Pulse on SAFM, leading the conversation.
We've joined forces to bring you in-depth, exclusive G20 developments as we count down to the much-awaited inaugural G20 summit in South Africa, November 2025.
Tune in every Thursday at 16:20 Central African Time as we explore how this first G20 in Africa impacts the continent, from trade and innovation to climate and development.
It's a powerful crossover between Channel Africa and SAFM
as we bring you the G20 through an African lens.
The G20 in Africa.
Global Summit.
An African voice.
Let's find out what's happening in the world of business. Here's Tabiso Lehuku with business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Asanda, and good morning. Botswana's Dipswana Diamond Company is temporarily pausing production at some of its mines, cutting output in response to prolonged weakness in the global diamond market. The global diamond market has experienced a downturn since the second half of 2023, which caused Botswana to cut production by 27% to 17.93 million carats in 2024. Botswana, which accounts for about 90% of Botswana's diamond sales, reported a 46% drop in sales revenue last year. Zambia says its Afrexim bank loan is commercial and will be restructured. Secretary to the Treasury, Felix Nkulusula, says they are still at the negotiation stage and the debt will be restructured. The African Development Lender has argued that as a multilateral institution like the International Monetary Fund or World Bank, which lends on concessional terms below market rates, it is exempt from taking losses when countries default. The MK party in the South African Parliament wants Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana to be censured over the alleged mishandling of the budget process for 2025-2026. Godongwana tabled the national budget for the third time last month when the MK and EFF expressed their dissatisfaction with the increase of the general fuel levy. MK MP Mzwane Lemanyi says he has tabled a motion in the National Assembly for a debate in censuring the tabling of the budget.
These events constitute a failure of leadership, a violation of constitutional principles, and a breach of public confidence. Finally, the House should resolve to censure the Minister of Finance, Minister Godongwana, for his mishandling of the budget process and we call on this House to affirm its commitment to transparent oversight that is pro-poor and to end this unaccountable executive rule.
South Africa's Minister of Employment and Labour, Nomakosazana Math, says that strict compliance with the country's labour laws is essential for building a stable environment that attracts investments. Speaking at a media briefing in Pretoria on key issues affecting the employment and labour sector, the minister emphasised that adherence to labour regulations not only encourages entrepreneurship but also boosts South Africa's competitiveness on the global stage. Innocent Simosa on this report.
The briefing also addressed several recent developments, including Cabinet's approval of the National Labour Migration Policy and the Employment Services Amendment Bill, the release of the 25th Commission for Employment Equity CEE annual report, an update on the Employment Equity Court case, and various employment creation initiatives.
China and Hong Kong stocks urged higher, led by gains in rare earth and technology sectors as investors awaited the high-level US-China trade negotiations in London. China's blue-chip CSI 300 index climbed 0.3% in early trades, while the Shanghai Composite gained 0.4%. Hong Kong benchmark Hang Seng advanced more than 1% and reclaimed the key 24,000 level, the first time since the 21st of March. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1 Naira 556, Botswana 13 Buda 24, Kenya 1,000 shilling 7.18, and in Zambia it's at 24 kwacha 60. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar there will cost you 5.55. Russia 78 rubles 80. India 85 rupees 75. China 7 yuan 18, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 75. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Gold is trading at $3,304 and platinum at $1,167 per ounce. Brent crude oil $66.45 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lohoko.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Over 35 organizations are expected to converge at the Union Buildings in Pretoria over illegal immigrants in South Africa. They say South Africa is facing a myriad of challenges and that foreign nationals are worsening the situation. Yes, Khutato, just take us through the main aims of the march, what you're hoping to get from them.
So we are basically saying to the President of the Republic of South Africa, illegal immigration is a pandemic. Implement the laws. It's not that we don't have these laws. How many people are being human trafficked? How many people are being hijacked? Our schools are full. Our hospitals are full. And it's almost as if we're carrying the burdens of the entire Africa at the expense of South Africans. And we are basically saying enough is enough. We want the President of the Republic of South Africa to meet us at the Union Building. We've submitted letters to say that we are coming on this day. We want to meet with him there to give him this mandate because clearly he has failed citizens. He's failed South Africans by failing to implement the law. That's the most important thing. We are going to give you a mandate. We, the people, shall govern.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu on Channel Africa every weekday from 12 to 2 p.m. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine weekdays 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
Africa's quest to restore the hope of its citizens in the availability of health services to the treatment of non-communicable but often complicated health situations has been unveiled with the launch of the African Medical Center of Excellence in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. The facility is to provide health services to Africans with emphasis on diseases like hematology and cancer, among others, as well as get into research work on infirmities that seem to be peculiar to Africans, people of African descent, to know which medication would be the right one to apply without speculative treatment. Channel Africa News correspondent in Nigeria, Collins Nosa Atohengbe, has the report.
The launch of the African Medical Center of Excellence is a demonstration of the concern of the collaborating institutions, groups and individuals to establish an excellent treatment center of excellence on the continent. The plan is to give Africa and people of African descent an innovative facility with the aim of reducing the cost of acquiring healthcare services that could match what is available outside of the continent, for which Africans have spent huge resources on health tourism. The facilities was made possible through the combined efforts of the African Development Bank, Afrexim Bank, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company. In collaboration with King's College Hospital, London, it will provide its expertise to support the Africa Initiative. Speaking during the launch of the center in Abuja, the president of the Afrexim Bank, Professor Benedict Orama, says for quite too long, research into the health challenges affecting Africans have been left to those who have not been able to provide the needed solution, but which the AMC will now address satisfactorily for the continent's healthcare delivery.
AMC is the center that we hope will drive renewed emphasis on research in diseases of health interest to people of African descent. Many diseases affect Africans for which there are no affordable cures because no investments are channeled into researching them. We have historically sat back and waited for others to do research for things that concern us. The AMCE has been set up to try to reverse that. An example is sickle cell anemia, which affects 2 to 3% of Nigerians and about 15 million Africans worldwide. It is a collective responsibility to begin to change the course of that disease.
Taking the expectations further, the Chief Executive Officer of the Medical Center of Excellence, Brian Deva, told participants during a tour of the facilities that non-communicable diseases are the primary concerns of the center, and one of them, the sickle cell anemia, will not just be treated but it will be cured permanently. The Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, Wamkele Nene, who represented the African Union, said the launch of the African Medical Center of Excellence is a reflection of what Africans can do through collective efforts. He says it's a continuation of the continent's success in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic.
The African Medicine Center of Excellence is a living testament
to what Africa can achieve when we harness our collective vision and we deploy the necessary resources to ensure that that vision becomes a reality. We confronted the COVID-19 pandemic, and Professor Orama was requested by our heads of states to be one of the co-champions defeating this pandemic, laying a very strong basis for a continental revival and resilience after COVID-19. It is therefore befitting that today he is concluding this task that the Assembly of Heads of States and Government of the African Union gave him by opening and commissioning this center to serve our continent in the imperative of public health.
Much as the facility is directed at solving Africans' health requirement primarily and is located in Abuja, Nigeria, one question that comes to mind is how well Nigeria would do in getting its support to solve some of its pressing health needs in such areas as maternal mortality. The alarming proportion of the loss of lives of women during child delivery has given the government a grave concern, and finding a solution to the calamity has gobbled such funds with a slow but an encouraging result only in the past 2 years. Before now, statistics reveal that 814 out of 100,000 women died during childbirth. Though this has reduced slightly to 512 in 2024, the deaths has continued to cause concern. Dr. Choma Ejekam, a public health specialist and consultant, says the deaths are preventable, but the drugs in use in Nigeria have limited effectiveness.
Women die from complications. The focus and the leading cause is actually postpartum hemorrhage. So this happens when a woman after birth, the uterus didn't contract enough to stop bleeding following delivery. It's said to contribute to 1/4 of maternal death globally. And Nigeria alone, 22% of our maternal death is out of postpartum hemorrhage. And sadly, Nigeria contributes to 19% of the global burden.
As daunting as the task of finding a permanent solution to maternal mortality may seem, there is the strong belief that with the establishment of the AMC, most of the peculiar health problems plaguing people of African descent will be resolved without much stress. According to Benedict Orama, the center will serve as a catalyst for the transformation of African health sector, a proof that Africa is taking its destiny in its hand in healthcare.
Why our vision for the African Medical Center of Excellence is not just to provide top-notch healthcare, but to also serve as a catalyst for the transformation of the African health sector. We want this AMC and others that will follow in other parts of Africa to make a bold statement to the world that Africa is finally taking its destiny in its hands in terms of healthcare sovereignty and contributions in setting global healthcare standards.
The African Medical Center of Excellence in Nigeria is the first of the total 5 such centers to be set up across Africa, including at Ghana, Kenya, and Tanzania, among others. The Abuja facility, built at the cost of about $350 million, is expected to process over 300,000 patients in the next 5 years, encourage return to the continent of Africa's health experts who moved abroad, reduce the cost of healthcare and incidences of health tourism from Africa, but attract health tourists to Africa for economic gains for the continent. It already has about $75 million out of the expected $1 billion fund for healthcare assistance to support indigent patients. From Lagos, I am Collins Nosa Atohengwe for Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
This week on Economics Monday, we'll look at how African economies are repositioning in a high-interest post-pandemic world. South Africa's economy is now 37% smaller than it could have been had it kept pace with its peers, highlighting the urgency of reform. And we also cover new workplace quotas, a 4.5 trillion rand fiscal shift and efforts to unlock Africa's $4 trillion in domestic capital, plus Ethiopia's bold budget move, Cote d'Ivoire's cocoa strategy, and mining tensions in Mali. So it's quite a bit to get through. Let's see if we can unpack all of this with Dr. Peter Karungu, who's an economist, academic, and businessman. Dr. Karungu, always good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you and good morning. How are you?
All right. I mean, there's so much to look at. I am intrigued, though, by this story of South Africa. Its economy is 30% smaller than it would have been had it kept pace with its emerging market peers since 2010. What's been going wrong, do you think, and what could the country have done better?
I think in terms of the numbers, we are saying over the last 15 years, our economy has grown literally less than 2, at most between 0.5 to 2%, depending on who you speak to. On average, the emerging economies have posted growth rates sometimes exceeding 4.5%. And if you do it compounding the numbers, it's of course correct that we have shrunk relative to what we could be. In other words, when we are posting a GDP of, let's say, 7.5 trillion rand, we could have posted anything more than 10, 12 trillion. That's massive numbers. But what happened? If you look at the last, from 2009 all the way to about 6 years ago, we had massive, unprecedented economic decay that was literally driven by a government then, of course, and our former president, who, in my view, the system operated without an effective pilot. What am I saying? I'm saying if you look at that period, the fundamentals, macro, micro, and otherwise, were not anywhere in the picture. In actual fact, the debate you and I are having did not exist. We had an economy that stagnated, unemployment skyrocketed, corruption became literally untamed, and of course that had consequences. It's always good to remember in economics there is short, medium, and long term. The impact thereof was so negative, and it would take a little bit longer to turn it around. If you recall, the SARS used to collect literally not even 50% what we tend to collect today, meaning the government ability to provide services and delivery, so to speak, was highly, highly affected. So to cut the story short, we need to get South African economy to grow above 3% at a minimum. I'm not even asking for 4.5%. We need to get our people back to work. We need to get all citizens to understand that this is for all of us to win. Nobody should be left behind. Improve our skills, cut corruption, pay taxes, and be counted as a citizen who wants to drive the economy forward.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this. This is also a story that surprised me quite a bit, I must admit. The African Finance Corporation says that Africa sits on nearly $4 trillion in domestic funds, pension schemes, banks, SWFs that could fill an infrastructure gap exceeding $400 billion annually. If these funds are not being used, where are they sitting and what are they doing?
That's a very good point. First of all, you and I would agree that the economy, African population is growing. The youth is also coming up very sophisticated than we could. Therefore, the need for us to improve infrastructure at an African level is imperative. Indeed, we need, like they say, anywhere not less than 4 trillion US dollars. And it's not a massive number. It's literally almost about, give and take, we are asking for 1.5% of our GDP. But remember, this is a long-term investment. It's not a one night off. Over time, Africa depended heavily on what we call direct investment, foreign direct investment. We also depended heavily on something called, which I always look at it in a negative way, donor funding. And that's not the option we have these days. These days, The world is, the whole country are becoming inward looking, and nobody think heavily about how we can be able to progress as a global community, meaning the challenge is on our own. Having said that, we know that there is a lot of money that we pay into pension fund. There's a lot of money that we tend to put into what we call sovereign funds. These funds could be unleashed and be able to give the alternative for our infrastructure development. The question is, why not? Most of these funds, the way you look at the laws that govern pension fund, is highly restrictive. Of course, the risk of taking the money from people's security for long term become questionable if it put into what we call investment, because these are investment in long term. So the scary part is that if we do it, we need to understand the level to which sub-Saharan Africa is prone to corruption. There is not lots of money if all we do is to be put into the system and corrupted leaders own it. In actual fact, put it what we need to be told. We are even told about over the last 50 years, the African GDP could have been 3 times what it is today if corruption did not web into it and misallocated all these funds elsewhere. So I can understand the concern, but we need, first of all, to correct corruption, number one, release these funds without the risk of corruption into investment opportunities like this infrastructure without risking the long-term expectation of the people who are putting this money in their pension kit. That's the issue.
All right. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to have to leave it there. But thank you so much. Your insights always greatly appreciated on the program. Thanks for your time, Dr. Karungu.
Much, and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. That's Dr. Peter Karungu, who's an academic, a economist, and also a businessman, talking to us about some of the big stories that are played out across the continent on the business front. And we do this every Monday around about this time in our feature we call Economics Mondays. So we'll have another feature for you this time next week. Right now, though, it's 7:59 Central Africa time, which means it's time for us to take a look at what's happening on the program in the next hour. Asanda.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. If you've just done it, remember, you can get in touch with us on our social media platforms. Our handle is @ChannelAfrica1. We'd love to hear your views and your questions. In this third and final hour of Rise and Shine, we look at Malawi and Mozambique having opened the first ever one-go border post. That infrastructure designed to contribute positively to trade, investment and economic growth for both countries, the neighbors.
Yeah, fascinating. The Mozambican president, I think, visiting Malawi. So let's find out a little
on his
bit
birthday more. Also, he visited there. Last week was his birthday.
Interesting.
Daniel Chapo, happy birthday to you.
Yeah, thank you so much indeed for tuning in. My name is Ndoro with Asanda Beda, and this is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, where we bring you the African perspective. It's 8 o'clock Central African time. Here's your news with Asanda.
What's
called Asanda? Oh my goodness.
And then Fikile Lingwati will have sports headlines after her.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter and Asanda. Good morning. Political scientist with special interest in political economy, Dr. Frederick Guluba Mutebi, says Rwanda's decision to withdraw from the Economic Community of Central African States, or ECAS, will not have a direct impact on regional stability. The move by Rwanda comes amid rising tensions over the M23 rebel conflict in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Rwanda also accused the neighboring DRC of instrumentalizing the bloc with the support of member states. According to the Foreign Ministry, Rwanda's right to the rotating presidency as stipulated in Article 6 of the treaty was deliberately ignored with instructions from the Congo. Motebi says what this move instead indicates is that there is a unanimity in condemning Rwanda for its role in the conflict.
What that exit demonstrates is that within ECAS itself there has been a degree of unanimity in condemning Rwanda's so-called undermining of DRC's territorial integrity. But as far as resolving that conflict is concerned, I'm not sure it's going to be affected at all.
The Malawi Defence Force has been squarely implicated in the tragic plane crash that killed Vice President Saulos Chilima and 9 others. The government of Malawi has informed the families about the findings of Germany's Federal Bureau. According to the investigation, the plane used for the ill-fated flight was not fit to fly, with documented maintenance issues that had not been addressed. The damning report cites critical failures in aircraft maintenance and pilot fitness, raising serious questions about accountability and oversight within the military's aviation operations. The crash occurred on the 10th of June 2024 when the aircraft operated by the MDF went down in the Chikangawa forest en route from Lilongwe to Mzuzu. Kenya's independent police oversight body has launched an investigation into the death of Albert Ojwang, who had been detained for false publication. Ojwang was arrested for a post on X in the western town of Homa Bay. According to a police report, while in custody, Ojwang sustained head injuries after hitting his head against a cell wall. He was rushed to hospital where he was pronounced dead on arrival. The director of rights group Amnesty International's Kenya branch has described the death as very suspicious. Police have said Ojwang tried to commit suicide. It remains unclear what the charge of false publication refers to. Risk analyst and former South African diplomat Dr. Kingsley Makhubela says Elon Musk needs to tread carefully against US President Donald Trump. The feud between two of the world's most powerful billionaires shows no sign of ending. This after Trump declared yesterday that he had no desire to repair their relationship. The fight began over Musk's public criticism of Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Budget Bill and the projected $2.5 trillion increase it would cause to the federal deficit. Dr. Makhubela says Musk should not overemphasize his importance.
American would, in general, resent a very wealthy person who challenges the office of the president and wins. It doesn't matter whatever problems they may have with Donald Trump. That's one big problem that Musk has to manage. But Musk has to also understand that the United States president has a lot of powers that can really be used to frustrate some of his key ventures.
The Israeli army says it's retrieved and identified the body of the military chief of Hamas, Mohammed Sinwar. The IDF made the announcement yesterday, 3 weeks after announcing his death. The BBC's David Bamford has the details.
An Israeli army statement said DNA checks confirmed a body retrieved from a tunnel underneath the European hospital in Khan Yunis was that of Mohammed Sinwar. The Israelis say the body of Mohammed Shabana, the commander of the Hamas Rafah brigade, was also found at the scene. They died, Israel says, in a military operation on May the 13th. Mohammed Sinwar was the younger brother of Yahya Sinwar, killed by Israel last year. He'd been accused by Israel of masterminding the October 2023 attack on Israel that triggered the war in Gaza.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headlines, World Football's governing body has introduced landmark innovations at the upcoming Club World Cup to enhance fan experience, transparency and operations. And Rwanda's Florence Nyonguru strikes gold as Kenya's Vivian Korir reclaims Kigali Marathon title. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Zilipendwa
na Abedi Jean de la Croix.
Kwa nini wanamuziki wengi sana wa kizazi kipya hawafiki mbali pale wanapofanya muziki?
Ni kwa sababu kitu cha kwanza ambacho naweza nikaongelea nikagusia zaidi sana ni kusema kuwa wale wasanii wanapotoa ngoma yao ya kwanza ikiwa kama kahiti kidogo tu, wanaanza kutamba mitaani, wanaonekana kama wapo majuu zaidi sana.
Kuna wanamuziki wengine ambao wanakimbilia kwa waganga wa jadi. Hivi muziki na dawa vinaendana?
Kitu cha kwanza naweza nikasema ni kuwa muziki na dawa haviendani. Lakini muziki ni kipaji.
Kuna watu wengine wanashutumu wasanii wengine kwamba wanaroga.
Wanaroga, wale wasanii kama wanaroga ni kutokujiamini tu. Lakini kitu cha muhimu sana ni kipaji.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Malawi and Mozambique have opened the first ever one-go border post whose infrastructure is designed to streamline cross-border trade and movement. The inauguration comes a day after the two nations signed 3 agreements aimed at streamlining trade and travel between the two neighboring countries. Malawi's President Lazarus Chakwera and the visiting Mozambican President Daniel Chapo presided over the opening of the infrastructure. In Malawi, this border post is located in Dedza district. In Mozambique, it is located in Kalumu in the administrative parts of Ulongwe in Angonia district, Tete province. George Mango reports from Blantyre.
The opening of the one-go border post builds upon a bilateral agreement signed in October last year to simplify cross-border trade under the Southern African Development Community SADC Trade Protocol. The one-go border post model carries out the migration, customs and health processes between the two nations at a single entry and exit point, promoting greater efficiency in the movement of people and goods and reducing time and logistical costs. The model is part of the World Bank-funded Southern Africa Trade and Connectivity Project, which aims to strengthen connectivity, facilitate cross-border trade, and promote sustainable economic growth in the Southern Africa region. During the opening, President Lazarus Chakwera urged African countries to open up to each other in a bid to boost trade.
Not one stop, but one go.
E todos concordamos que deve ser de facto ida única, não paragem única.
And let all the borders across the continent become a one go.
Vamos tentar ver se todas as fronteiras no continente tornem-se uma one go.
And truly Africa's integration becomes a reality.
E que de facto esta celebração entre africanos torne-se uma realidade.
And thanks to the World Bank and others that have seen the wisdom of this,
queremos também agradecer o Banco Mundial e outros parceiros que viram mérito nesta iniciativa.
Let it be replicated everywhere.
His Mozambican counterpart, Daniel Chapo, underscored the need for the two nations to remove all trade barriers so that businesses blossom.
For that,
é importante como Estado
it's important as a state
apoiarmos o setor privado,
to support the private sector,
as pequenas e médias empresas,
the small and medium enterprises,
principalmente a nossa juventude,
especially our youth,
para podermos fazer negócios
so that we can make business
sem barreiras.
Without barriers.
Vamos remover tudo aquilo que é uma barreira.
We want to remove all the barriers.
Para termos desenvolvimento rápido e acelerado.
So that we can have a rapid and accelerated development.
Com esse desenvolvimento,
because it's with this development,
vamos dar mais água ao nosso povo.
That we are going to give more water to our people.
Mais energia ao nosso.
This was Chapo's first visit to Malawi since he was sworn in as Mozambique president on January 15, 2025, after being declared winner of that country's elections held on October 9, 2024. The two presidents also discussed the urgent need for direct flights between the two nations, noting that the Mozambican delegation had to connect via South Africa and Lusaka, Zambia, to reach Malawi. Malawi in recent years has been pushing for the Nsanje World Inland Port project, which was deemed a short-term transport solution by Mozambique compared to other available options like the rail line project and road project, including that of Kilimani Port. George Mhango, Channel Africa News, Blantyre.
Now, let's discuss this further in terms of those relations between Mozambique and Malawi, as we joined on the line by political analyst and governance specialist Helio Guilish. Helio, thank you so much for joining us. How are you this Monday?
Me and have a very good morning and a very good week ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much. How can we describe the relations between Mozambique and Malawi and their key areas of agreement?
Well, I think there are historical ties between these two countries that are renewed with every new cycle of governance. And in addition to the historical ties, considering that they are both brother countries, I think there are sought to improve bilateral and cooperation with focus on issues on sharing water resources, water security, improving economic relations, and last but not least, the issue of border security and monitoring. I think these are the main focus that can guide and orient the relation between these two countries.
Would you say the diplomatic ties have benefited the two nations so far? It's been 50 years of agreements between the two.
I think, yes. Diplomatically, I think in terms of integrating these two countries, more than economic and security issues, I think looking into the history, the liberation history, and all these challenges that both countries faced, I think some relations were built and must be kept in the sense that we are sharing some borders, we are sharing some languages, some people, some culture, and it's also important when we are speaking about diplomacy. It's important to address these issues that are not economic only, but also important in the sense that keep people together.
And now the two countries have opened the first ever one-go border post. It's a World Bank supported project. In what ways do you see this infrastructure assisting in the cross-border trade and investment for them?
Well, I looked at one of the major problems facing in the countries such as Mozambique, Malawi, Zambia, and so on, some countries in the region, is precisely the border management. They generally have a very huge bureaucracy and corrupt structure. So this will make it very difficult to move people, goods, and services that are vital to the survival of the parties involved. So I think our borders have also been dealing with a very weak security and control system. This makes an incursion of terrorists, insurgents, and smuggling of drugs and malicious products to the society. So I think improving the issue of border, improving security, improving the interconnection between these borders can enable and boost a kind of dynamism on economic and human security. And also the users will feel more comfortable, and consequently the economic gains will arrive from this side.
And projects like these are undoubtedly, they are undoubtedly positive in terms of removing trade barriers and assisting in economic cooperations. However, what possible challenges could emerge as a result of this particular project on the other hand, and how should these be averted? You speak of security issues.
Yes, security issues are really important. But above security issues, I think economic integration is a must. But when we look into the competition between or among countries, we see that some countries are trying to take some advantages. So when we put goods, services, and people in a very good way of interacting, the gains can arrive naturally. Removing all these barriers can also enable and boost, encouraging people to invest more in each other's side. I think there are kind of tourist of economic and ecological and so on and so forth opportunities that can be a win, because if we remove all these barriers, if we boost the security, so then countries can enjoy a favorable environment to invest and to enjoy the integration, the real integration among the region, and put the countries talking together and growing as a countries, as a region, and then as a continent.
Malawi and Mozambique, the leaders have also been talking about the need for direct flights between the two countries, moving away from the current state of affairs where they either have to go via South Africa or Zambia. What kind of support would be needed to make this a reality? And do you think the World Bank should be approached again?
Yeah, this is a tricky situation. For example, I can say that Mozambique has been facing enormous difficulties when it comes to aviation. And it's currently undergoing measures restructuring of the flag carrier with these Mozambique Airlines, with the view of reestablishing first regular flights at national level and then regional flights for the countries such as Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and so on and so forth. So signing this agreement and learning from other countries will enable Mozambique and Malawi also to avoid mistakes that were made in the past and have a national airline that can fly safely and with quality. So this will require a huge investment, but above all, transparency and political will to make it possible. I think it's unacceptable to go to Malawi. We have to have a stop in South Africa and then go to Zambia. I think there is no need to do that. And with political will and strong investment, we can make it a reality.
Is the World Bank the best investor in this one, funder?
We can work with the World Bank, of course, because of the availability of money, but also we can mobilize internal funding because we are not that poor as the literature and society are saying. So even mobilizing some internal funding, we can step by step doing a huge issue such as Ethiopia Airlines did in the past with private sector itself.
How can we read into this move, finally, as part of a general integration between other Southern African countries and how it sets precedents for the adoption of similar agreements?
Firstly, we have to put SADC working together with a common goal. What I've been seeing is that SADC and African Union sometimes are not working with common goal. And the competition, I know, but that inside the international relation, there are no friendship, but interest. But if we put apart some games of interest and put also the idea of common goal, we can explore the corridors that we have. We can make the economic vibration more alive and make countries talking the same language in terms of economic integration, cultural integration, respecting all the gains that individually as a countries we have to take. But if we have this percentage of gains that we can share gains, so then the countries will also gain from the idea of integration. So it will require a huge dialogue that can enable countries to establish a concrete platform that enable growth to happen without some strong external aid.
Besides what we've discussed today, what do you think the two countries should be focusing on moving forward in terms of which sectors specifically they need to be making more agreements on trade and economic growth front?
I think looking into the reality of these two countries, the agriculture should have seen as an important tool to integrating this, because the products that are producing are coming from Mozambique also into Malawi can feed the almost the region. But above the agriculture, which is the base to sustain food security, I think even management of natural resources. So then, from the managing of natural resources, we can do a diversification, which will comprise the infrastructure, which will bring the idea of tourism and so on and so forth. So starting from this blessing that are the natural resources, then we can diversify the economy and then make the environment to tourism, to security, and to even ecological and game reserving and so on and so forth. We have a huge structure that must be seen attentively and looking into these opportunities that can enable countries to develop more.
Well, Helio, we'll leave it there for today. Again, appreciating your very important insights into this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, and see you in another opportunity.
Great, thanks so much. Helio Gulish is a political analyst and governance specialist talking to us here on Africa Rise and Shine, discussing relations between Mozambique and Malawi.
Annika Longi sur Channel Africa.
Nous allons danser au son de Haya, que je dédicace à vous tous, chers auditeurs, qui êtes en train de suivre cette émission Mix Vibration. N'oubliez pas, vous pouvez nous suivre à partir de l'application SABC+. Vous choisissez Channel Africa pour suivre l'émission en direct. Nous allons danser au son de Haya.
Annika Longi, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Stella Longwe pamalonje
palitusokoma pano pamalonje kumvera nyimbo za mu Africa kusangalala kupeza moyo akuti kumva moyo kuti kuyenda bwino pano pamalonje ndiyetu apa tili ndikatswiri oyimba ameneyu ndikatswiri wa dziko la Malawi amene akukhala mdziko la South Africa ndipo amayimba amene akuti ndi Big Nick Malawi yatusati kuti kodi moyo wanu woyimba ukuyenda bwanji mu Johannesburg?
Moyo woyimba ukuyenda bwinobwino kwambiri chiliyonse chikutheka ndithu bwinobwino.
Ayi aziwoneka chiliyonse chikutheka mofa magrasi anu apa mwaka akuti kumenya yonse aziwoneka zoti azikutheka ndithu mu Johannesburg.
Malonje pa nthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo lowiruka ndi Stella Longwe.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
South Africa is battling a renewed outbreak of foot and mouth disease, with confirmed cases now in the Limpopo province, Free State, as well as Northwest and Gauteng and Mpumalanga provinces. Authorities have launched an urgent vaccination drive aiming at distributing 900,000 doses to halt the spread. The outbreak has already hit one of the country's largest cattle feedlots, the Karan beef, raising alarm over potential national supply disruptions. And this comes as the country continues to navigate the lingering effects of last year's avian influenza outbreaks in the poultry sector. So, to discuss the scope of the current crisis, the government's dual response to animal disease outbreaks and outlook for food security, we're now joined by Dipendeneng Serrache, who's the Deputy Director General for Agriculture Production, Biosecurity, Natural Resources Management at the Department of Agriculture in South Africa. Thank you very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having us, and you could go easy on that name.
Thank you so much indeed for that. Okay, so let's start with the scale of the crisis. Just how widespread is the current foot and mouth outbreak across the country at the moment, and which areas are under the greatest pressure from what you're seeing?
Thank you very much for having us. It's not, I heard you joining in, mention a lot of places. If that's what about foot and mouth, that wouldn't be accurate. We've got at the moment an outbreak a big outbreak in the KwaZulu-Natal province, and we've got an outbreak in Gauteng province. Those are the only places or provinces that we've got outbreak. The foot and mouth disease outbreak in KZN, it's not really a surprise. It's because there are buffaloes from Tusho and Folosi Game Park, which, as you know, buffaloes are the carriers and the transmitters of the foot and mouth disease virus. And that's unfortunately spilled over to Gauteng, which is what is worrying us, because we don't expect Gauteng to have an outbreak of this massive scale.
Tell us a little bit more about this outbreak confirmed at Karan beef in Gauteng. What are the implications for national beef supply, the supply chain? Could we start to see shortages and perhaps even price increases?
No, not necessarily. Just so for the viewers' understanding, meat from cattle that are foot and mouth positive is safe consumption, and there's just procedures that have got to be followed if we were to slaughter cattle that are foot and mouth disease positive or virus positive. So we don't expect that any change, really, any drastic change in the meat supply situation. We expect that there would be a bit of a delayed slaughtering because, as you mentioned, current beef has got to go cleaning, has got to go sanitation, has got to separate those that are positive and from those that are negative. And we need to observe a period of 28 days to come back and double check which animals are, or cattle in this specific case, are food and mouth disease positive, and those that are not. So that might take just a little bit of a delay. But remember, the meat that we eventually consume has been in the process for quite some time. So this current outbreak would not necessarily lead into any shortages at the moment.
So the department has secured, I believe, 900,000 vaccine doses. How quickly are these being distributed? And in your view, will that manage the problem?
So we use vaccination ordinarily, whether there's an outbreak or not. We use vaccination to control the foot and mouth disease virus that is expected and is circulating at the areas around Mfolozi, part of KZN and the Limpopo and Mpumalanga. So the outbreak in Gauteng found us already having started the process of vaccination of those in those areas. So it just so happens that while the order has already been made, you happen to have this outbreak happening. What we intend doing with this is to ensure that quickly, as quick as possible, that are positive.
All right, it looks like we may have lost Mr. Serache there. We're hoping to get him back on the line talking to us about this outbreak of foot and mouth, which I believe is not unusual. It is something that happens at this time of year. And we're grateful to hear that we can eat the meat of foot and mouth infected animals as long as they go through a particular procedure. So in theory, there shouldn't be a shortage of meat products in the coming months, particularly if these vaccines do reach the areas of concern. Mr. Serache, are you back on the line? All right, we're still trying to get him back on the line, and we're going to ask him a few questions more, actually. I'm curious about what might be the issues. Mr. Serache, are you with us? All right, okay, looks like we might have lost him, and probably we're going to leave it there, actually. And so bottom line, it's a situation that's being managed by the department. It is not unusual. And with the vaccines, you and I shouldn't worry about food security, but we will leave it there. And Asanda, I know that you know something about foot and mouth disease as somebody who's been involved in the agriculture sector.
Yeah, it's a particular challenge in the Limpopo region. And Mpumalanga provinces, they suffered the most because of the close proximity to the Kruger National Park. So it starts there and then it just spreads to farms, and it happens a lot during the season. It's almost like something you can refer to the way we refer to flu season. It happens this time of the year all the time.
Right.
And it's just farmers who need to educate themselves because the department does offer support, but I think sometimes if the farmers themselves are not coming forward to take use of the vaccines that are made available. And unfortunately, once your animal has foot and mouth disease, the chances of survival are very low. Some of them have to be culled. So it's very important for farmers to actually take more of a proactive approach in this one, not wait to react later.
So the bottom line is it is manageable if we do the right things and follow the procedures.
Yeah.
That it is something that can be brought under control, but I guess it is just a question of education. All right, so that was our discussion on foot and mouth, the outbreak in South Africa. increased concern that it's moved to Gauteng, which is an unusual location for it. But the authorities saying not to worry because the meat can still be eaten if procedures are followed.
And it doesn't affect humans, so we don't need to be worried about we might get sick. We won't.
All right, that's good to hear. That's good to know. All right, it's time for your news headlines. Here's Jolani Tulongwebe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Making headlines. Political scientist with special interest in political economy, Dr. Frederick Guluba Mutebi, says Rwanda's decision to withdraw from the Economic Community of Central African States, or ECAS, will not have a direct impact on regional stability. The Malawi Defence Force has been squarely implicated in the tragic plane crash that killed Vice President Saulos Chilima and 9 others. The government of Malawi has informed the families about the findings of Germany's Federal Bureau. And finally, the Israeli army says it's retrieved and identified the body of the military chief of Hamas, Mohammed Sinwar. I will have details on these and other stories at 9 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's find out what's happening in the world of sports. Here's Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. We kick off with football news. The World Football's governing body, FIFA, says the upcoming Club World Cup will see a range of innovations introduced that will make the tournament even more entertaining and engaging for fans, while streamlining operations and boosting transparency. Following the International Football Association's board's approval, referees will wear body cameras at the competition, and the footage will be used by FIFA Club World Cup 2025 exclusive global broadcaster DAZN as part of live match broadcasts during the tournament. After the successful trials at the FIFA Intercontinental Cup 2024 and a number of FIFA's youth tournaments, an advanced version of semi-automated offside technology will be used and will be in place at the FIFA Club World Cup 2025 with the aim of making the decision-making process for offside situations as fast as possible. Now, tennis news. Nigerian football legend JJ Okocha expressed deep emotion and pride following Coco Gauff's sensational victory at the French Open on Saturday evening. The 21-year-old American tennis prodigy secured her second major title by overcoming world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka in a gripping 3-set battle, finishing 6-7, 6-2, 6-4. This remarkable win not only showed Gauff's incredible talent and resilience, but also marked a historic milestone as she became the first American woman to win the French Open singles title since Serena Williams in 2015. Okocha, widely regarded as one of Nigeria's greatest footballers, took to Instagram to share his heartfelt congratulations and admiration for the young athlete's achievement. More tennis news. South African wheelchair tennis star Donald Rampart is happy with his performance after claiming silver in the 2025 French Open men's quad doubles final alongside his Turkish partner Ahmed Kaplan. Rampart and Kaplan missed out on the major title after their 6-3, 6-4 defeat to Israel's Gein Sesson and Niels Vink of the Netherlands. Rampart says despite not getting the result he wanted in the singles, he remains proud of redeeming himself with a power performance in the doubles final.
It was really hard for me to actually adjust to the clay because I started in Barcelona not so good. I played against Spain and I made a lot of mistakes. You know, the movement was not good and all that. So yeah, it was tough for me to adjust to the clay court, but finally I managed to get to it, and yeah, that just shows how important it is.
Rampart adds he was happy to reunite with Kaplan after their participation in the Australian Open earlier this year. He believes they complement each other very well.
So he's such a special player. He has big shots, big forehand, big backhand. So yeah, I was just there, try to guide and do what I do best, just play long balls, deep balls, high balls to set up for the short balls. So yeah, we did well, and I'm very proud of what he did. And also, he was the first time playing in the finals of the Grand Slam. So it's a good achievement for him and also for me.
For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Hi, I'm Tammy Ngubeni, anchor of Africa in Business on Channel Africa, bringing you the African perspective.
And I'm Ashraf Garda, host of the National Pulse on SAFM, leading the conversations.
We've joined forces to bring you in-depth, exclusive G20 developments as we count down to the much-awaited inaugural G20 summit in South Africa, November 2025.
Tune in every Thursday at 16:20 Central African Time as we explore how this first G20 in Africa impacts the continent, from trade and innovation to climate and development.
It's a powerful crossover between Channel Africa and SAFM
as we bring you the G20 through an African lens.
The G20 in Africa.
Global Summit.
An African voice.
It's time now for your business news. Here's Tabiso Luhuko.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Peter, and good morning. The National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, NUMSA, says that the closure of tyre manufacturer Goodyear will have a ripple effect on the local economy in the Eastern Cape province. Last week, the union was served with a Section 189A notice, which will result in the closure of Goodyear's manufacturing plant in Kariga. Over 900 employees will be affected by the closure of the plant, resulting in a greater unemployment rate in the province, which currently stands at 41.9%. NUMSA spokesperson Pagamile Hlubi-Majola.
The worry that we have as an organization is that this decision is not just going to affect the jobs of workers at Goodyear directly, but any of the jobs that are linked in any way to the value chain. There are companies, smaller companies, for example, that provide services to Goodyear, and the closure of that plant will mean that those companies are also likely to be affected. So we're actually likely to see far more than 900 jobs being affected by this decision.
South Africa's tourism sector has come into the spotlight following the recent update to the United States Department of State's travel advisory. While the advisory maintains a level 2 rating, exercise increased caution. It has sparked conversation around safety and perceptions of travel to the country. In response, the Minister of Tourism, Patricia de Lille, has reaffirmed South Africa's commitment to ensuring a safe and welcoming environment for all visitors. Minister de Lille comments.
South Africa remains one of the most sought after travel destinations in the world. We are known for our natural beauty and all of those. And we are making sure that all our travelers that do come to South Africa, that first of all we share information with them, that we do have a 24/7 National Tourism Safety Helpline. Also, the hospitality sector will issue also advisories, to possible visitors.
Botswana's Debswana Diamond Company is temporarily pausing production at some of its mines, cutting output in response to prolonged weakness in the global diamond market. The global diamond market has experienced a downturn since the second half of 2023, which has caused Debswana to cut production by 27% to 17.93 million carats in 2024. Debswana, which accounts for about 90% of Botswana's diamond sales, reported a 46% drop in sales revenue last year. Zambia says its Afrexim bank loan is commercial and will be restructured. Secretary to the Treasury, Felix Nkulusuka, says that they're still at the negotiation stage and the debt will be restructured. The African Development Lender has argued that as a multilateral institution like the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank, which lends on concessional terms below market rates, it is exempt from taking losses when countries default. Oil prices dipped a few cents, but held on to most of last week's gains as investors watched for US-China trade talks in London later in the day, supported by some hopes a deal could boost the global economic outlook and fuel demand. Brent crude futures slipped to 6 US cents or $66.41 US dollars a barrel. US West Texas Intermediate crude fell 4 cents to $64.54. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 556. Botswana 13 pula 24, Kenya 128 shilling 718, and Zambia 24 kwacha 60. $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 ruble 55. Russia 78 rubles 80, India 85 rupees 75, China 7 yuan 18, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 75 cents. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Gold is trading at $3,304. Platinum, $1,167 per ounce. Brent crude oil, $66.45 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lohoku.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. June is Youth Month in South Africa. Celebrate Africa's young voices with us. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Hi, I'm Tami Ngubeni, anchor of Africa in Business on Channel Africa, bringing you the African perspective.
And I'm Ashraf Garda, host of the National Pulse on SAFM, leading the conversation.
We've joined forces to bring you in-depth, exclusive G20 developments as we count down to the much-awaited inaugural G20 summit in South Africa, November 2025.
Tune in every Thursday at 16:20 Central African Time as we explore how this first G20 in Africa impacts the continent, from trade and innovation to climate and development.
It's a powerful crossover between Channel Africa and SAFM
as we bring you the G20 through an African lens.
The G20 in Africa.
Global Summit.
An African voice.
Ahoy, matey.
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
A compelling piece written by Nadia Lubowski, managing trustee of the Anton Lubowski Educational Trust, or ALET in South Africa, Hungry Minds, Why Education Begins with a Full Stomach, argues that education reform must begin with the basics. These are nourishment and teacher empowerment. Drawing on both science and on-the-ground experience, she highlights the critical link between nutrition, gut health, and cognitive function, stressing that no curriculum can succeed if children are hungry. Lubowski now joins us on the line to unpack these critical issues. Nadia, thank you so much for joining us. How are you this morning?
Hi, good morning. I'm good, thank you.
Thanks so much for making time to discuss. Let's start first by you helping us to get to know the Anton Lubowski Educational Trust better and what the objectives are of the trust and why launch this Hungry Minds, Why Education Begins with a Full Stomach campaign.
So the Anton Lubowski Trust, we established the trust in honor of my father's name. And his legacy of being a South African that stood up against the apartheid system and was then gunned down in front of his home in 1989. And his life never having been, his death never having been brought to justice. So we started the trust because we felt he really believed in that the only way you uplift a country is through education. And so we started the trust to honor his legacy.
And why this particular campaign?
I've been working in Philippi and various communities since 2009.
So, and then why launch Hungry Minds, Why Education Begins with a Full Stomach?
So, it's a campaign that involves a lot more an holistic approach, because from all the work that I've been doing in Philippi, that we've been working all over, it really becomes evident what needs to happen for a child to thrive in the education system. And so our main campaign is actually building circles of support around young children. Mm-hmm. And for a child to thrive in the classroom, it needs to have a full stomach. But it's not just about the full stomach, it's actually about the nourishment that a child is receiving from eating properly. We know that research points to the fact that our gut is our stomach and our gut is our second brain. And, without that, we really don't have the possibility to learn in the ways that we need to, including all sorts of other things. But I think, there's such a call for education reform coming from all corners of the world. And we just feel that South Africa isn't really getting the basics right. And that has a lot to do with, children having sufficient food to eat and the right kind of food to eat.
And talking about not having the basics right, often we ask the question around why our schools are failing. But you're of the view that we should ask, what do our schools need to succeed? Tell us more.
Correct. Yeah. Because I don't know. I know that we can get very bogged down by the things that aren't working, and we can get very bogged down by, the things that make us angry in this country at the moment, I suppose. But our children are our most vulnerable and really are the future that we need to be investing into. And what is it that makes a child thrive? What is it that enables a child to thrive in its environment, in its school, in its learning and in its life in general? And I think we really need to look at what is it that our schools need to succeed. And this is where we really began to see how building these circles of support around young children is so necessary, because mostly it's actually not the children that are the problem. It's what environments and what we're offering them that isn't sufficient. And we really need to look at what does a child need to succeed, and therefore what is it then that we need to embed in the environment for them to kind of access that and succeed in their lives and their development.
So after we ask the question, how do we achieve this cultural shift in terms of how teachers are valued and supported, and how that has the power to change the entire education system?
These are all such good questions, and I suppose they've got a lot of loaded answers. But, there's this teachers really are trying their absolute best. I think there's a lot of teachers that need a real acknowledgement for what they're doing in the circumstances that they're working in, and the kind of support that's lacking for the teachers, the type of teacher training, the support in the classroom, etc. They really are doing their best. And then there's that component of our South African what can you call it, inertia when it comes to needing to address our education, is that there's teachers in our education system that are, that have criminal records, and the teacher became a teacher and that was never looked at. And there's some seriously damaging things happening in schools because, they're completely overworked, the classrooms are overcrowded, they're underpaid, there isn't enough training. I don't think there's the kind of support. A teacher is not only a teacher, but actually also a social worker. There's various things that a teacher needs to deal with in those environments, and I don't think we're paying enough attention to that. So I think that we really need to look at what kinds of people do we want in the education system. And if you look at countries that are really succeeding, they are putting the cream of the crop in the education system, because that's what that's what the child now learns from, is somebody else who's good in their industry. And how do we actually train teachers to really cope and manage the types of environments, and I suppose the new kinds of children that are being born and demand a lot from us as a society.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, in addition or in conjunction with basic nutrition, gut health is also of importance. What have you seen on this point in terms of on-the-ground experience? And do we take it as seriously, gut health, as we should? And are we equipped with the knowledge to do so?
Look, I don't think we're equipped. But I think part of what I think we miss when it comes to education is that learning is one of the most complex systems in our human existence. And we don't all have the answers to it. But the point is that actually in its complexity is how we learn together. So, like me, for instance, me personally, like I've really paid a lot of attention to health and to gut health, and I'm still learning. And it's really about that each individual, because change always starts with each individual. And if each adult in the system is actually paying attention to their own nutrition and their own health and their own well-being when it comes to gut health, because remember, the gut health is very much linked to our well-being when it comes to depression, anxiety, all those things. That very much comes from focusing on your gut health. And I think we as adults haven't really achieved our best with that yet, and therefore we don't really understand how important it is for young children. So, but I think it's the real key for me is this complexity in learning that we don't seem to admit to and really embrace, that learning is this really complex yet exciting thing about being human. And what that means for education means that our system is completely wrong in terms of how children learn, because we're not acknowledging how complex it actually is.
Talking of complexities, the cost of living is something that a lot of Africans struggle with or grapple with. So how can families manage their diets on low budgets, and does the Trust work with other groups as partnerships to assist within this regard?
So, you really are pointing to the crux of this all, which is that our current economic system and the level of poverty that we have in this country is absolutely shocking and in many ways unacceptable. That, and this talks to a much higher, a much broader problem, which is that our economy hasn't been growing sufficiently for the last 15 years. And people don't have jobs, and people don't have the resources to feed their families. So we've partnered with our art therapy. We've partnered with an amazing organization called Spiel, but we also have gotten donations for a soup kitchen in the area that we are, and we do parenting skills workshops. And with those parenting skills workshops, you get a food parcel so that it helps you in your home actually, feed the mouths that you need to feed. And one of the things that we are asking for is, donations of 40 Rand either for a meal per person per day, which is about 40 Rand, or a food parcel for 500 Rand that at least can cover some of the basics for a family. And you can get onto our website on www.alet.org.za to form part of that initiative. But it is, you hit the hammer on the nail about that families don't have the capacities to really feed the mouths that they need to feed.
I know you mentioned that one of the communities you work in is Philippi. So how far do you reach in terms of other communities? Are you based in the Western Cape only?
Yeah, so we are based predominantly in Philippi because we're wanting to really transform that community in itself and really uplift it in ways that I don't, to really focus on that particular community because it's transformative what's happening there. But we're also reaching out to Mpumalanga with an organization that we've partnered with called Samela Foundation. So it's really looking at different play groups there and what we can do to help uplift those communities in the more rural areas.
All right. Please do repeat again how we can get in touch with you as the trust.
So you can find our contact details on www.alet.org.za, and really do get in touch with any kind of way that you might like to help.
Yeah,
and
very, very
thank
important.
you for listening.
What you're doing is very important, and we thank you so much. Please do continue with the work there at the Anton Lubowski Educational Trust. Thanks again, Nadia, for your time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Nadia Lubowski is Managing Trustee of the Anton Lubowski Educational Trust, or ALET, in South Africa. So it's alet.org.za, their website. Come forward with those donations. We need to tackle this issue of our children going to school hungry. They won't be able to study as they should, and they won't succeed. It's important.
It's heartbreaking, actually, to hear that we're still dealing with issues like that. I mean, it should be standard that no child goes hungry. Anyway, that's another whole topic which you've discussed. What we know for sure is coming up after the 9 o'clock news, On the Move with Brother Benjamin and Sister Palesa.
I always feel bad kind of like segueing to our topics.
I know, you're always so much nicer than us. Exactly.
Best job in
Okay, now we're going to be speaking about something that I've been doing recently. I've been going to the gym a lot, right? So it's like I'm trying to get down my belly because I've got a very big beer belly.
Yeah.
And I've reduced my beer intake and I'm doing all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you go to the gym and you're like, yeah, I'm going to feel good. But every time you leave the gym, there's more pain that you've never experienced in your life before. You're like, this is supposed to make me feel better.
Yeah.
But then you feel all these pains. You're like, you go to the gym, you feel the pain. You don't go to the gym, something happens that gets you to feel the pain. So we're going to be talking about something in our fitness feature today, about how, the gym can actually affect your bedroom life.
Oh, okay. Is it for the better or for the worse?
I don't know.
I think it's for the better. I think I've read somewhere an article.
Some people are saying the moods can also kind of when you are tired after the gym session, the last thing you want is someone to demand anything from you.
You're tired.
So that's why you got to go to the gym in the morning, I think.
And so we look at the pros and cons, because I think, Asanda, you do have a point. Yeah.
No, do the gym in the morning.
I think for me, whatever you're doing with the exercise routine, find something you enjoy.
Yeah.
Don't do the things that are going to leave you in pain, and then you're coming home, and when your partner is like, babe, when are you like, I can't, I've got a headache. We're even talking about the Comrades Marathon, that, it's... You're going to put your body through all that pain and suffering. What for? And I know there are people who love it, but what for?
And also pain in the gym often is a sign of overtraining.
Yes.
There is a pain that you get from stretching your muscles. It's more discomfort rather than pain.
Yes.
You understand your body and the difference between pain and muscles that are stretching because of pushing weights. Because that's quite key. That's one of the things I learned when I used to go to the gym. There's a healthy pain, and then there's a pain that's telling you doing too much, stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what's coming up, guys.
So when are you going to the gym? What time are you going today?
I'm going in the evening today. I
Okay.
like going in the evening.
Good
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
All right.
Awesome. I need to
Sure.
get back to it.
Yeah.
And I'll do mornings.
Me
when I
too.
do.
Let's sign a pact right now. We're starting this week.
Not this week.
Okay,
Next month for me, I think.
All right. Anyway, that's how we come to the end of today's edition of Rise and Shine. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's do it again tomorrow, bright and early.
Thank you. From me, Asanda, Beda, and my colleague Peter, it's goodbye for now. And stay with us as Channel Africa, as there's more programming, like, On the Move coming up with Benjamin.
But first, the news with Jalane Tulongwete.
SABC News.
Thank you, Peter. Top story is a Sawa reaction to Rwanda withdrawing from the ECAS and a damning